Oh, Bob Nightall. What do you know?
Welcome to the Keeping the Nostalgia Live Show. I am your host, Billy Powell. With us is Joe Carney, and Joe Carney has started a podcast. And Joe, tell everybody a little bit about your show and where they can find it.
Yes, started out on Anchor FM. It's called Indy's Local Flavor. Basically, three topics. It's music, sports, and health and wellness. Done shows about myself, how I got started musically, playing the tenor sax for 6 years. Talked about the producer Rick Rubin, Beastie Boys, Run DMC. Did high school hoops with a picture of my brother on the episode there, and then I did a history of the Pacers, which was fun. And did my latest episode was had my first two guests on at the same time. We talked about Ball State in the 90s, which was fun with Sweet 16. That was a good time.
And
you can find me. You can find me on Anchor. You can find me on iTunes Podcasts. You can find me on iHeartRadio and Spotify Podcasts as well.
And it's Indy's Local Flavor, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I was on your show maybe a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, and we chatted about the ABA, and we chatted about do we remember some of those players, and of course we did, and then we talked about Michael Jordan versus Dr. J.
Yes, great
Tonight,
show.
though, I think we're going to try to go back and forth a little bit of our favorite, maybe all-time baseball team pre-1992.
Yes.
And also our favorite baseball team and maybe why it's our favorite baseball team.
Yes. And if you don't mind, if we could throw in your top 5 baseball movies.
Ooh, okay. Okay.
Well, for that.
Actually, once you start with your top 5 baseball movies, and I'll give you mine. And mine are going to be right off the top of my head, but I love baseball movies.
My number 5 is A League of Our Own, with Tom Hanks and Madonna.
There's no crying in baseball.
Correct. Number 4 is Major League Classic, Charlie Sheen. Number 3, Field of Dreams, Kevin Costner and James Earl Jones. My number 2, Robert Redford in The Natural. And then I kind of had this experience when I was running the book for my son's team, the Bad News Bears, with Walter Matthau. My bonus pick is 42, the Jackie Robinson story.
You may run like Hayes, but you hit like shoot. So I'd have to. I don't have a. Actually, to be honest with you, the best baseball movie that I love to watch over and over is Mr. Baseball with Tom Selleck.
I haven't seen it.
Oh my gosh, he did a great job in that. Field of Dreams, Major League, The Natural, Bull Durham. You know, those are all on my list. And I really kind of enjoyed Major League 3, Back to the Minors with Scott Bakula.
I did not see that.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good. Corbin Burton's still in it and still can't catch a grounder.
Of course. Mr. Hollywood, right?
Yeah. Got to protect his face.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so why don't we go through, we'll go back and forth. You could start out
sure.
Your all-time, I want to see if your baseball team could beat mine. So now I picked some players on mine that, you know, I have a complete team of the best baseball players of all time that I think could beat any team. So why don't you start out with your choice at first base?
Are we doing all time?
All time.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Pete Rose.
Pete Rose. I'm going to go a little bit old school and do the Iron Horse, Lou Gehrig from the Yankees.
Oh, you can't go wrong with that.
No, you can't.
Go wrong with that. If you just want to go down the list?
Sure, you can.
All right. The outfield was really tough.
It was.
Tough to pick. My all-time catcher is Thurman Munson. Pete Rose at first. I had Jackie Robinson at second. I'm a Phillies guy, but I know Eric Boa is an all-time, so I had to go with Ernie Banks. My third baseman, my number one baseball person I would love to meet, and I would probably get shell shocked over, would be Mike Schmidt from the Phillies. And the outfield was tough to pick, but I went with Ted Williams, Willie Mays, and Dave Winfield. My starting pitchers, I had two because I couldn't really choose just one. I had Steve Carlton and Nolan Ryan. My relief pitcher, just on style alone, was Raleigh Fingers. And my DH is Reggie Jackson. Are you familiar with Carl Erskine's background? Because this is my homer pick.
Yes, Carl Erskine was actually really good friends with Jumpin' Johnny Wilson. Both Carl and Jumpin' Johnny went to Anderson, right?
Yeah, and he was also the mayor of Anderson when he retired. And my managers, I couldn't pick really either. I had two, Billy Martin and Joe Torre. So, because I knew ahead of time you had Sparky, and I love Sparky. He's my guy, but I didn't want to pick the same one you did.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I think we only have one player where. So second base, my first baseman is Lou Gehrig. Second base would be Joe Morgan.
Yeah, of course.
I'd have to. My shortstop. A lot of people are going to hate me for not picking Ozzie Smith, but all I think he can actually do is a really good backflip pregame, and I'm going to get a lot of crap for that. I know I am, but
quite.
But I'm going to go with Robin Yount of the Milwaukee Brewers.
He was my second pick.
Yeah, underrated, not really known just because of the media, the size of the market in Milwaukee. But so I had at third. It was a toss-up. So I chose Michael Jack Schmidt, and I also chose the human vacuum cleaner Brooks Robinson.
He caught everything in the zip code.
Exactly, and outfield was really kind of weird, but I'd have Ken Griffey Jr. in center.
Of course.
They just showed on this day in history, such and such years ago, him making that catch in center field, climbing up the wall, kind of like Spider-Man.
Yes.
I'd have to go with Babe Ruth or Carl Yastrzemski in left field.
Yaz was awesome.
Yeah.
And, Babe Ruth's a given, too.
Yeah. And this is all at their height of their career. Now, the one person that I have in right field is just because he's my favorite baseball player of all time, is Dave Kingman.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
I can't explain why. He actually in 1977 he played for 4 separate teams: the Padres, the Mets, the Yankees, and I think the Angels. And I think it's got to be some kind of record that he hit 26 home runs in the season, and all of those were with 4 different teams.
Oh wow!
I know he doesn't love the media, but it's just something as a kid. I guess it just maybe it's a bubblegum card that I unwrapped, or he looked really neat with the All-Star logo on the bottom. I know his strikeouts are up there, but I think it's really neat. I just fell in love with him as a 7-year-old or 8-year-old going to the Hag drugstore there in Keystone and Broad Ripple Avenue and opening up those packs of baseball cards.
Oh man. That's a whole nother show, baseball cards.
Oh, yes. My catcher, Johnny Bench, because, of course, you can see the Reds are my favorite. Which way is that? I'm juggling. And then, like you, I picked a couple starting pitchers. Nolan Ryan is one of them. So we've actually have 2 choices that we've both have chosen. Another, Dave Kingman, not the best, but Gaylord Perry.
Oh, I love Gaylord Perry, especially with the Vaseline.
Oh, yes. I don't know if that was really proven, but it's not like Joe Negro and pulling out the sandpaper out of his back pocket. And also I tossed a third one in there, and Louis Tiant.
It was great with the Red Sox. Great.
Yes. And then my closer, I have Raleigh Fingers, so we actually had 3. Mm-hmm. And I also have, just because I got to watch him as an Indianapolis Indian at beautiful Busch Stadium there off of 16th Street in Indianapolis, John Franco, who played for the Reds and then, of course, went on and played for the New York Mets.
Okay. Nice.
And then my manager is Sparky Anderson.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, and he did great things with the Tigers.
Oh yes,
I mean, just
winning
the Reds alone. But.
Yes, winning a World Series. It's hard to win the World Series, manage a World Series baseball team in the first place, but do it with two teams and one in the National League and one in the American League is pretty. It's pretty hard to do.
Without a doubt.
Now, I don't know if you did. Did you do a team that's your favorite, not totally your best?
Yes,
okay.
I did the 1980 World Championship Philadelphia Phillies.
Okay. And
you want to hear the roster?
Yes, I would.
Okay, I forgotten some of them, so I had to do the old Google check off BaseballReference.com. The manager was Dallas Green. The starting catcher was Bob Boone, of course. Larry Boa. Starting pitcher was Steve Carlton. Left field was Greg Lazinski. Center field was Gary Maddox. I'd forgotten about right field Bate McBride. And then there was relief pitcher Tug McGraw. And first base was Pete Rose. Third base was Mike Schmidt. And I forgot about Manny Trio. Their stats were they beat the Houston Astros in the NLCS 3-2. And I don't know if this was the Pine Tar year, but they beat George Brett and the Kansas City Royals to win the World Series 4-2. I don't know if that was 1980 was the Pine Tar era or not, but that's my team.
That's very interesting. I like the 75 Reds from top to bottom, but I do have a list of and a best out of 7 put up against even Murder's Row with the Yankees. Of course, there's all kinds of opinions in every way that you can go on that, but I just over 100 victories. I mean, it just and the really strange thing about the 75 and 76 world champion Big Red Machine is that no pitcher had over 20 victories.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and there wasn't a dominant starter, but it was a dominant starting pitching and how they had it scheduled out.
So when did Seaver come on board?
Seaver came on board, if I'm not mistaken, in '83.
Okay, because I knew he wasn't part of 75. I wasn't sure about 76.
Yeah, no. He came in a little late, and he may have been in '81. He went 14-2. But the Reds had the best record in baseball in 1981, but because of the strike and they split the season up in two different things, the Reds got the shaft out of that, and of course the Dodgers came out of the National League at that time.
Right, with Fernando.
Yeah.
At that time, right.
Breathing out of his eyelids. And then Tommy Lasorda.
So, yeah, that was, that what was it about those 70s and 80s teams that we don't have now?
They put it all out there every day. Nowadays, so-and-so has a contusion. It's a freaking bruise. Right. You don't see players play 162 games. You don't see the NBA playing 82 games. I mean, if I was a fan and LeBron James was coming to town here in Houston and it's his day to sit out, I want my money back because I'm paying to go see LeBron. I'm paying to go see the best basketball player in the NBA.
I agree.
So there's no 162 games. It's all out there. There were no steroids. Were there greenies and were there speed and stuff like that? Yeah, probably, but nothing like Barry Bonds and what you have to talk or Roger Clemens and what you have to think about before you put them in the best category.
Yeah, I'm not a Bonds guy. His dad, I was great. Bobby Bonds. I love Bobby Bonds.
Oh, Bobby was great.
But Barry Bonds, I'm like, not so much.
Yeah. So growing up in Indianapolis, my grandfather took me to about 20 to 25 baseball games there in Indianapolis at Busch Stadium, and they were the AAA affiliate of the Cincinnati Reds.
Right.
So I have a list of my favorite Reds, but it's based a little bit on what I saw as a child because the Reds would come to town. They came to town both in 75 and 76 and played exhibition games against the Indians. And I think the Indians actually beat them one of those 2 exhibition games.
Wow.
In 75 and 76. So, of course, you take a lot of players, take rest and all that kind of stuff, and it's for promotion. But so at first base, I'd have Ted Kluzinski. I'm screwing that name up. Klazuski.
That's okay.
Ozzie Smith fans are going to be mad at me, and Ted. Ted used to he would have his shirts torn off here because his arms were guns and couldn't fit into the regular uniform.
That's what Pete Rose did, right, when he first started?
Yeah, they had those sleeveless uniforms. Yeah. Now on second base, one of my favorites, I don't know why, once again, is Junior Kennedy. He was a utility player for the Reds. At third base, I have Pete Rose because Pete Rose also played third. I think Pete Rose is one of those few that started in every position for a certain amount of games, I think.
Right.
Of course, except catcher or pitcher.
Yeah.
In the outfield, I'd have Geronimo.
I love Cesar Geronimo. Yeah. Love him.
I'd have George Foster.
I met George Foster, if you want to hear that story later.
Yeah. And that 52-ounce black bat, 52 home runs in 1977. Oh, my gosh. The sideburns.
He was amazing. He was a brick wall.
The sideburns. Down to there. But the 52-inch bat, man, was 52-ounce bat. Man. I'd have Eric Davis in center field.
He was great.
Yeah.
He was fantastic.
Johnny Bench would be my favorite Red. Of course, there was a catcher in Indianapolis called Dave Van Gorder. I just loved Dave Van Gorder, but of course Johnny Bench would be my favorite. I'd have Tom Seaver, Tom Browning. Yes. Wow, the three Toms. And Tom Humes.
Ground control to Major Tom.
Yeah, and Tom Browning. I think that's right. Tom Seaver, Tom Browning, Tom Humes, the three T's. But it's just because I got to see a lot of those guys come up. And another guy that I really enjoyed, who had a little bout with Lyme disease, so his career was ended a little bit earlier, was Nick Gasaski.
I'm not familiar with him.
Played for the Braves for a little while, but he had such a slow swing, but he hit home runs. But
okay.
And one of my favorite coolest manager would be Jim Fergoshi.
Okay.
And I got to see him, of course, in Indianapolis with some AAA affiliates, but, he was my favorite. Tell us your George Foster story.
It's a two-parter. I met Rose and Foster. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. Met them in Castleton, and I was able to get the VIP with the collector's den in Castleton. And like a week before, now it was a big chunk of change to see Rose. You had to pay for the autograph. It's a big chunk.
Do you remember how much it was?
Rose. It's $25 for George. I want to say $75 for Rose, I think.
Okay.
So I asked ahead of time. Well, I got a break with Rose. So I read like 2 weeks before. I was reading Sports Illustrated, I think. And there was this story about Rose, and he won the NL MVP of the year. And so a buddy of mine, Rob, who got me started doing the book for his baseball team, said he met Rose before and he was kind of salty. And I'm like, okay, no problem. So I did some prep work for him on him, and I read about that article in '77. He was the NL Player of the Year, MVP, and normally they get a Cadillac. So I'm walking up to the table and I say, hey, Mr. Rose, I read about your article in 1977 that when you were the MVP, you declined the Cadillac and accepted an AMC Pacer. So he was an older guy, and I see the wheels turning, okay? And he looks over to his agent and he says, I did have an AMC Pacer, so bang. He was all smiles for me, totally cool, great time. My son and him had pictures. I said, hey, Mr. Rose, thanks for coming, and I appreciate your time. And I said, this marker's for you. I gave him a green Sharpie. I said, here's a green Moneyball Sharpie for you. Great time. I was there to see George Foster. And I went over and I talked to George Foster, and I said, and he was totally in shape. The only reason why you couldn't tell he was playing is he had a white goatee. And I talked to him for quite a while, and he talked about going to a little college in California, junior college, and then he started on. I found out this week he started out with the Giants, and I said, hey, my favorite coach, John Madden, started at Pacific in California, and man, it was like we totally clicked. And on the photo, I said, hey, would you write on the photo? Would you say two will play ball? And so yeah, that was an amazing time to meet Rose and Foster there in Castle, the Collector's Inn, which is now closed. There's only one in Indy. It's the downtown one. But yeah, I mean, meeting those guys, I got to meet Mike Schmidt, but meeting Foster was a really close second. Rose, I was really glad I was able to put a smile on Rose's face that day. Really, really cool time.
Well, it's interesting that you said that he got a pacer because most of the times that we went to the baseball games together with me and my grandfather, we went in a pacer. He was a big AMC fan, Ambassadors, Pacers, you name in the AMC car, he had it, and we called it the fishbowl.
I believe that.
Now, what's interesting is you were talking about your meeting of Rose is that my wife got me a meet and greet with Pete Rose here at Fitterman Sports here in Houston, Texas. Yep. And oh my God, he was very, and I've heard the same stories. And, you got to give these guys just a little bit of a break because,
sure.
Everybody and their mother, it's like anytime that, I have somebody on that, I always ask, what's the upside and downside of being famous, but
sure.
So you hear those stories, but he was, of course, we both paid him to chat with us for a little bit and sign something.
Correct.
But I had him sign a Busch Stadium, Indianapolis Indians ticket from one of the last few games that they played at Busch Stadium, and he got kind of a smile on his face and said, "Oh, I remember coming up and playing the exhibition games," but very nice, very welcome. Very welcoming, and took a couple pictures with both me and my wife, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was probably a little starstruck, and probably could have told him what I do, and possibly he would have came on. But I got there, I got my pictures with him, got my ticket autographed, and I was on high on the hogs by the time that we left Fitterman Sports that Sunday.
Outstanding.
Yeah,
I don't get starstruck because I met George Carlin.
Okay. I saw George Carlin at Bally's in Las Vegas, so that's
oh wow,
yeah. And it's interesting you talk about comedians too. I've seen the Dice Man, which is a little bit different humor than George Carlin.
Love the Dice.
Well, matter of fact, we were going to see Dice play in Indianapolis at the what was that theater that's on Emerson? The
you're talking about Crackers?
No, it was. It was the I was on Emerson, and it was the basketball. I can't remember, but I'll look that up. But my wife at the time said, I don't want to go. Maybe you want to go with Larry, who was a friend of ours. And I said, Larry, you want to go? He said, yeah. So we sat in the fourth row, and this guy 2 rows down from us started getting on him, say, do the rhymes. And this is right at a point in the time where he was sick of doing the rhymes. And he had the guy stand up, and I was like, "Oh man!" So he let him have it, of course. But we could have a show on comedians. That's some good stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah. So Joe, tell us again where we can get your podcast, what you talk about again, and when are your shows, by the way?
I try to do one once a week. You can find Indy's local flavor on. If you have an Android phone, do the Anchor version, anchor.fm.com. If you have an iPhone, you can do the iTunes podcast thing, or iHeartRadio, or Spotify podcasts. That's where you can find me. I've done sports. The ABA show I did with you was outstanding. If you like basketball, sports history, I've done sports. I've done music. I did one on mental health. Which went with my buddy Johnny, which turned out great. So, but Anchor, the big thing with Anchor with the virus, and I don't like talking about the virus, but because of the virus, you can do 4 people on your podcast now, not including yourself. So that's been a huge boost for me.
Now the mental health does that mean you had Quiet Riot on the show?
I wished. The lead singer is no longer with us.
That's correct. Kevin Dubrow.
I saw him in Vegas with a weave, so it was interesting.
Joe Carney, thank you for joining us today. I know it's a little bit short, but we're doing a first video one for both you and I. I think everyone will enjoy this, and I thank you for joining us.
Billy, it's always a pleasure. Anytime you want to have me on, just let me know.